Have you ever wondered what would happen if you turned one of your companions into a piece of clothing? Well, today you'll find out. Ladies, gentlemen, and adventurers of all ages, Baldurs Gate 3 is a game where pretty much every inch of the map has something waiting for you to find it, whether it be obvious or quite well hidden, and sometimes the hidden ones are very much hard to find, or they are rewards for things that you would just never actually do yourself, at least not on your first playthrough. So today we're going to talk about these exceptionally rare items. We've talked about some others before, but of course, as you may expect, there are more than 10 particularly rare items in the game, so we've got another collection of these for you today, with a disclaimer that none of these items will be legendary items, because even though they have the highest rarity in terms of in-game power, most people are quite aware of the legendary items at this point. And also, for the most part, we will avoid Act 1, as people have really just thoroughly explored that more than any other act in the game. The exception to that, of course, is our first item of the day, the infernal robe. This is in Act 1. You can actually get it really super early on, but the reason that I put this on a list of particularly rare items is twofold. One, it requires you to straight up kill a companion, so, you know, most people probably won't do that, and so probably don't even know that this armor even exists in the first place. The second reason is that this companion wasn't added until super late in early access for the game, so even people who did play a lot of early access might not know about this, regardless of it being in Act 1. To get into specifics then, this item is a reward for completing Will's first quest. When you first meet him in the Druid Grove, he tells you he is hunting a demon named Karlach, whoever that is. If, when you find Karlach, instead of doing the intended route and making her a companion as well, if you choose to kill her and just blindly trust Will's orders, then the next time that you take a long rest, you will be visited by Mizora, who will grant you the infernal robe as a reward for completing this objective. This item is very rare clothing, +1 to armor class, half damage from fire, and also the level 4 evocation spell Fire Shield Warm once per long rest, which makes you take half damage from cold effects, and also deal 2d8 fire damage to anyone who hits you with a melee attack, which, especially this early into the game, is extremely strong. It's a level 4 spell. Second up today is quite a fun one, the Shield of Scorching Reprisal. In Act 2, when you reach Last Light Inn early on, a fight will break out with Flaming Fist Marcus. Most people will choose the options that lead to you killing him, but have you ever tried casting Speak with Dead on him after the fact? If you do, one of the options is to ask him if he left any valuable items nearby, and he will say, yes he did, which will mark a spot on your map just north of the inn itself, where there is a little makeshift graveyard. Up on the hill on the eastern side of this area, there is a pile of rubble with a relatively high perception check. I failed this a number of times and even had to get Karlach out of camp to give me a 5th chance, and once you pass the perception check, you can interact with it with a strength roll to move the rubble and then show a corpse. On that corpse, you will find this shield. It's a really odd place, high checks to pass, and the reward is really solid too. Blue shield, pretty ornate looking too, which is actually pretty good looking. Shield bash as usual on high level shields for the reaction to knock enemies prone when they hit you with melee attacks, but it also gives you resistance against fire damage and blazing retaliation, which is a bonus action once per short rest to increase your armor class by 1 for the rest of the turn, and also do 1d6 fire damage to any enemy that misses you with a melee attack. Third, we have the Protective Plate, which may not be the most exciting item on its own, but definitely is in a very obscure location. The specific place being in the morgue to the west of the House of Healing in Act 2, but specifically to get this you either have to use teleportation or you have to enter through a secret cave found in the northeasternmost point of the western landmass of this act. If you enter this cave, you will come around the backside of this massive pit that's in the backside of the morgue. You can climb down to the bottom of the pit if you want to, which will start a combat encounter. When you finish the encounter, the main enemy will have this item on them. This one is just super out of the way in a really obscure place. It either needs to be reached with specific spells or by finding the secret entrance on the other side of the town completely, and it's not obvious in the slightest that there will even be anything at the bottom of this pit if you do go down once you're in here to reward your actions. That said, the item itself then is uncommon heavy armor, with the notable part of it really just being resistance to necrotic damage. Nothing particularly special, but it's in a really weird place. Fourth up then is the Killer's Sweetheart Ring, which is both relatively powerful and very easy to miss. As far as where it is then, it's a part of the Gauntlet of Shar in Act 2, specifically the self-same trial at the end of the main floor. After you complete the trial, at the very top of the area, at the highest point, there is actually an item, though you would have no way of knowing that unless you press Alt when you're there, because it's just a tiny little ring sitting on the floor, not even in a chest or anything. It's practically impossible to see unless you're really zoomed in. If you don't press Alt here, you simply just will not be finding this ring, which is a massive mistake because this ring is definitely worth having. As far as what it actually does then, this gives you the ability to make an attack become a guaranteed crit after you get a kill once per long rest, and you get to choose whether to use it or not too, which is quite helpful. Fifth today is the Gleamdance Dagger. Moving on to Act 3 for the rest of the day, this one is before you reach the city itself. It is out of the way, and it requires a pretty murderous choice. Beside the bridge that leads to the city, there is a path down to the beach. If you travel the entire way to the western point of this beach, which will take you quite a bit, you will find find the guild fighting with some of the Stone Lord's men. You can choose to side with one of them or the other, or you can take the angry option and just fight everyone. At the end of the fight, if you kill the 9-finger side of the encounter on the left, you can loot their leader to find this dagger. For what it actually does then, it is a rare dagger, 1d4 with a +2 weapon enchantment. It is permanently glowing in a 6-meter radius, which has some interesting interactions with other potential items too, and then it has a really awesome effect where it gives you +1 to your armor class if wielded in your offhand, which makes this an excellent dual wielding choice for any characters who wish to do so. The 6th item then will pop up once you get into Baldurs Gate itself properly in the lower city area. Right near where you come in through the Basilisk Gate, there is a building called the Stormshore Tabernacle. There is a man within here, and in the corner of this room there is a hatch. If he sees you go into the hatch, he will stop you, he'll just interrupt you and make you not actually go through with it, so you have to sort of confuse him and distract him through conversation with separate party members, however you choose to do it, to get into the basement while being out of his line of sight. Once you're in here, it is just a heavily trapped corridor and then a bit of a vault. In the vault, any and all of the items that are in here are pretty rare, honestly. They all have the same requirements to actually get to them, and they all, well, they will curse you if you pick them up. My personal favorite item in here, though, is the amulet of the devout in the center chest. Once you have any item from here, it will curse whichever character holds it. You get multiple curses for multiple items, which makes all of these sort of equally rare. If you use remove curse or any other way of removing the negative effects from that character, it will spawn in a diva to fight you, so that's a really neat encounter that you could easily never actually have if you don't specifically do this. As far as the item itself then, this is one that is just extremely solid for clerics of all kinds, whether you are mainly a cleric or just a little bit multi-classed into cleric, so definitely worth grabbing if you have one of them in your party. This amulet gives you +2 bonus to spell save DC, which is neat, but the big deal here is that it also gives you an additional use of channel divinity if you have it. If you are, for whatever reason, multi-classed low level into cleric, this could essentially just double your divinities, which is exceptional, really. Second to last, then, we have another fun will-based piece of armor, which is the emblazoned plate of the marshal. As you progress Will's story, there are a number of things that can go on related to Grand Duke Ravengard. After you watch Gortash get a promotion, one of two things will happen. Ravengard will die, or Ravengard will go to the Iron Throne prison. Regardless of which of these happens, you will be talking to Mizora nearby afterwards, then have a long rest in your camp and she will give you some options there. If Ravengard died, the option she will give you is to bring him back to life. If he is in the Iron Throne, the option is to, well, tell you that he's there so that you know, and you know where to go to get him. If he is in the Iron Throne, you will have to actually go there and do that. During the Iron Throne encounter specifically, you have limited time to save as many people as you want, and he is in a cell all the way on the eastern side of the area of the facility. If you free him from the cell, he won't be wearing his armor, but he will have his armor on him, so you can actually pickpocket him during this, and then steal the armor right out of his pockets into your inventory, which you can't do afterwards as he's constantly wearing his armor from this point forwards, which will make it unpickpocketable. Alternatively, if you have the result where Ravengard died earlier on, you can get him revived into your camp, which just makes him appear there. Again, not wearing his armor, and surprise, surprise, you can walk up behind him while you're crouched and pickpocket him in your own camp to steal his armor right off of him here too. These are the only 2 points that you can actually do this, so that makes this armor really damn rare. As far as what it actually does then, this is heavy armor with 19 armor class base, reduces all incoming instances of damage by 2 no matter what as well, gives you resistance to fire damage, and also +2 bonus to saving throws, as well as letting you cast Fire Shield as an action once per long rest, giving yourself resistance to either fire or cold damage, and lashing out with 2d8 damage of that same type against enemies who hit you while this is active. Really quite a solid bit of armor, honestly. Then finally today we have the bonespike gloves, and these ones can be an absolute ball ache to actually grab, even being just one part of a set, but they are really good in certain situations that makes them actually worth this pain. As you progress through the Undercity ruins under Baldurs Gate, you will reach a door right around here on your map. You want to shoot the bodies that are hanging above you with a ranged weapon, and then the door will open. As you progress down here, you will enter what is essentially a murder trial, but not in the way that you would think that would mean. It gives you a few turns to complete it or just straight up die. There is one specific enemy that you need to kill within this timer to complete the challenge and survive, but there is also another specific enemy in this massive group who is up on the lip over here who is named Strangler Luke. If you want this specific item, you need to kill him and loot him and also succeed the challenge all within the 4 turns. After the 4 turns end, everything here disappears or you die. There's no way that anyone would think to do this without a ton of trial and error to actually find it, and even if you know about it, it still might take you a couple of tries to actually succeed and get the gloves safely out of here. When you do though, you'll be pretty happy that you did, because these gloves make you ignore enemy physical damage resistances, just as a whole, which makes them especially good in something like Tactician difficulty, where the majority of enemies will just have some sort of resistances. This just lets you plow through them. And that does it for the day then. Another pretty meaty collection of particularly rare and hard to find items in Baldurs Gate 3. I'm sure the vast majority of you did learn about at least 1 or 2 items items that you had no idea existed in the game until today, and I hope that helps you find just a little bit more enjoyment from the game, or even just gives you some ideas for things to try out in your next playthrough. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.